Two guys in their early 50s with one dream: to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Welcome back, Andy Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Hinks. It's good to be back.
It is. That was a simplified intro, wasn't it?
It was. It was. A lot simpler than what we normally have. I mean,
Yes.
you know, no tangents.
No,
We're
no,
straight down the line
because
tonight.
no tangents, because I think that tonight's episode, or this morning's episode, whenever you choose to listen to it, really doesn't have to be tonight. That's just when we're recording it. But this
Could
episode
could be 2028.
it could be 2035. Who knows? I mean, once it's out there in cyberspace, it's
Yeah.
gone. But I feel like the whole episode's a bit of a tangent, to be honest, Andy
Mm.
Walker.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Bit of a tangent based off a remark that got thrown into the Missing Links Golf Show podcast Facebook group, which kind of got us talking about the concept of going low.
Yeah.
How to go low, how to unlock your best. I guess it's probably worth paraphrasing or clarifying is probably a better phrase. When we say going low, it's all relative, like whatever going low means for you at your particular time. So that could be breaking 100, could be breaking 90, could be breaking 80, could be breaking par, could just be shooting your personal best, whatever it is.
At the end of the day, where you are, and if you're looking at, say, a Stableford competition, if you're 35 or 36 points with 3, 4 holes to go, how do you deal with that so you keep going?
I would suggest the wrong way of doing it would be if you're on 35 points with 1 hole to play, standing on the tee going double bogey for a point gets you 36.
No, that's definitely not the best way to go
Yes.
about it.
And if your playing partners pull that trick on you, Pilgrims, don't listen to them.
No,
Just make par and shake their hand and walk off and let them buy you a beer. Yeah. So, look, I've done a bit of thinking about it, Andy Walker. I think you've done a bit of thinking about it. So, what do you think we kind of package this up in a bit of a top tips to go low type episode?
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot there. I mean, we've talked about a lot over the course of the last almost 2 years. We've had various guests on the show that have talked about the concept of staying in the game or staying present, or however you wish to phrase it. So there's a lot of information that we've come across, and through our own experience, I guess. Not just on the golf course, your cricket experience, and I guess life experience as well in pursuing other goals and outcomes, whether it be professional or personal. There's these things are while we're talking about golf today, it's applicable to life, not just on the golf course.
Very deep, Andy Walker.
It is.
But it's also true, albeit going low was never necessarily my objective on the cricket field. Sometimes pulled it off, though.
Yeah.
In fairness.
Yeah.
No, that is true. It's, I mean, look, there's a whole lot of things. This might end up being more than one episode that we might touch on some of these topics over time, but we'll see how we go tonight. But I want to start, probably the place I want to start is around mindset on this. Now, that is an enormous topic in itself, but specifically, I've been spending a bit of time reading Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, which is essentially the book which kind of really brought into the public consciousness the concept that we talk a lot about, which is growth mindset versus fixed mindset.
Yep.
Obviously, we've talked a little bit about some of the great episodes that have been on Golf Beneath the podcast, and our very good friend of the show, Dr. Raymond Pryor, who I think does an awesome job explaining the ins and outs of mindset in a way which is just so much deeper than what we really ever thought it was. And that for me has been a bit of an eye-opener. So I want to start there. And I think let's start with a question, potentially pose this to you as well, Andy Walker, which sounds obvious, but it isn't. And it is, why do you want to, in inverted commas, go low in the first place? What do you think
Well,
some answers to that question might
oh,
be?
look, I think the vast majority of people out there would look at an outcome for that, and whether that be breaking your handicap, winning a competition, whether it be your club competition, whether it be your club championships, whether it be, like we're trying to do, playing senior amateur championships, or a New South Wales championships, or higher state championship, Australian championship, national championship. So I think that most people would, look at that question and answer it with an outcome based result.
Yes, spot on. You bang on the money. And it's kind of, I think it's often wrapped up, right, in one of these approaches where you go, I want to, insert target score here. I want to shoot this number. So then I can see myself as the guy who broke 80
Yep.
or the guy who broke 90 or whatever it is, the guy who broke par. Um, I can be that person that makes me feel better about my golf. Or I want to
Yeah.
shoot my PB, whatever that number is, I can be the guy who did that.
Yeah, and
Now,
there could be anything,
it
any
could be
number
any
of
number.
reasons
It
around
could be
that,
any number.
and
Yeah.
any number of reasons as well. I mean, you're talking about, having some pride, and maybe some status among mates, or around the club, or any number of reasons as to why you want to achieve that. Just personal growth, and personal satisfaction of shooting that number. I mean, I get an incredible amount of satisfaction of going out there and shooting a good score. However, in order to go low, I don't think that should be a focus.
Yeah, so it's such a tough game, right? Because it drags you into outcome thinking, and if you go back over a lot of the episodes in this show, we, and I know I have, definitely been guilty of doing this,
Mm,
and it might not even be I want to shoot this number to break 90, break par, break 80, whatever. It might be I want to shoot this number because a particular score is actually going to impact my handicap in a way that gets me into single digits, for
yeah.
example.
Yep. Yep.
Um, you
Or,
know,
or, or in recent times, gets me out of single digits.
or keeps me there. Um, so there's a lot of things, and the reason for that, and lived experience on this, is because I
Mm,
want to be that guy that is a single digit handicap and
yeah.
I'm not up into the tweens and the teens. Um, and the reason that I frame it like that is because what it's doing is it's tying your identity and your self-perception to your outcome. It's even more than just having an outcome-based goal. It's actually where it starts to bind your identity to the outcome. And that's where it triggers the fight or flight reflex much
Mm,
more strongly,
yeah.
because you're actually then something about you, not just your score, but something about you and your perception of yourself is then tied to that outcome, which
Mm,
makes that so much more important to you on the golf course.
yeah. Yep.
Versus, so let's just say I want to shoot a particular score because it's my personal best, and then that moves my thinking of myself and my friends' thinking of myself into a different realm. Okay, like that. That's kind of the gist of it. Um, that's doing all of these negative things around outcome thinking and tying identity to outcomes, versus another thought process, which is I want to become a better player. I want to learn, I want to develop and become a better player, and ultimately become that player that's shooting those scores, on a regular basis. But
Mm,
so rather than me using nouns, I'm using verbs.
yep.
So like rather than it
Mm,
makes me this person, it's I want to be developing, and I want to be learning, and I want to be improving.
mm,
And
mm,
therefore, instead of that school being a destination, it is a step on a longer path. All right.
mm.
So unpack that. What does that do to your mindset, and what does that do to your sort of mental state when you're getting in the closing 5 or 6 holes? Well, when you're tied to the outcome, you're getting really protective and steery, and all of those elements, protective over something, as we talked last episode, you don't actually
Yeah,
have,
you don't have at this point in time. Exactly.
but you do get protective rather than viewing it as that development and learning process actually frees you to say, well, actually, if I get the score, that's great. Obviously, I want to. If I don't get the score, I'm still learning and developing, and there will be lessons that I've learned out of that whole process. And it just totally de-risks the outcome
Mm,
because
mm.
you're learning from the process. So that's a mindset piece. Now, that's different to what we're probably going to talk about as well down the track around what your focus needs to be on during the round. But that's just that mindset piece about being a learner and a developer rather than being an identity tied to an outcome type thinker.
Yeah, yeah, and we had this conversation during the week. In that I've been listening quite a bit to the Golf Beneath the Surface podcast. I've also listened to the audio book Golf Beneath the Surface as well, and we always talked about. And certainly your mindset, when we're talking about the Dashingly Handsome PE teacher and your initial conversations with him around your mindset that you were a 15 to 18 handicapper, and that's just who you were, and trying to change your mindset to become a single digit handicap, having the mindset of being a single digit handicapper. Well, that in itself is tying your identity
And it's still
to
fixed.
yeah to a certain outcome, which is a fixed mindset. And we were talking about this, and when we're talking about the shift of being a 15 to 18 handicapper to being a single digit handicapper as being, oh yeah, that's part of a growth mindset, whereas actually not. That's still a
No,
fixed mindset
it
because
is.
you're tying the outcome, you're tying the result to your identity. A better mindset and a growth mindset is that I'm a golfer and my current skill set allows me to play on a single digit handicap.
Yeah, and I also am still developing and still learning and improving,
Yeah.
which is where I'm now shifting it to. But here's the other flip side of it, all right, which is a bit weird. So on this one, I replaced a fixed mindset with a better version of a fixed mindset, let's say,
Mm.
which
Yep.
was a stretch fixed mindset. Might be one way of describing it. But interestingly, it was really powerful
Mm.
because there is a lot of power in a fixed mindset, both good and bad.
Mm.
In the bad sense, if you fix it around where you're at the moment and you think that that's all that it's ever going to be, well, you'll be right, and that is all that it's ever going to be. But that process actually showed that changing it to what you might term a stretch fixed mindset or an
Mm.
improved like at a better level than where you are at the moment, that actually was quite powerful in my development.
Yeah.
The problem is
Yeah.
that's short term, and then that
Mm.
needs to change
Correct.
again. I think at the moment, and it comes back as well to some other conversations that we've had where I've been asking the question like, where's my ceiling?
Mm.
Like we've had a few
Yeah.
episodes talking about the glass ceiling.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
need I need to
Absolutely.
get rid of that thinking
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah. Of course, who's to say with enough time? I mean, obviously you've got time constraints around
Yeah,
how much time you can put in the game. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have a ceiling, right?
that's right.
You know, and we're not saying here that you could get to a point where you're playing on the PGA Tour. I mean, you know, that's that's probably that stretch goal is probably a little bit too far away, but certainly there's and I've said this all along that I can't see any barriers to you becoming scratch or better. I've never seen any barriers, and to your current golfing skill set, why you can't continue to improve and become a scratch or better golfer. I've
Yeah,
said that to you on many different occasions.
yeah. If you'd said that to me 2 years ago, I would have thought you were smoking something funny.
Mm,
But now and I'm not saying it because I feel like my game is anywhere near there. What I'm saying is that I've realized that the potential, the ability to continue to learn and improve is really limited by how we think about it. Not,
mm,
and there's at some point there are physical constraints in terms of like not going to run the 100 meters as fast as Usain Bolt and you know those types of things. not going to swim like Michael Phelps. They're physically gifted in a way that most people are not. But the
Mm.
the reality is, like for a lot of people, you probably can achieve what 98% of other people can achieve.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
And I know in golf, um, anyone that's probably at the level of golf that sort of we're running around at, you can play a tour level shot at any point in time.
Yeah.
That's one of
You,
the great
you,
things about golf, right?
you can play a tour level hole at
Yeah,
any point in time. And the great thing about golf, and this is where golf, over a short distance, say a hole, is a great leveler because a 15, 18 handicap can have a birdie. And if they're playing against a tour level player or even one of the greatest, like
mm,
Tiger or Jack Nicklaus in his prime, if Jack had a par and a 15 to 18 handicapper had a birdie, they've actually beaten the best of the best on one particular hole.
yeah, which you're never going to do in one particular even 50 or 60 meters sprinting race against one of the
No,
greatest ever sprinters. Is that, and so
yeah,
therefore it is different. But we are already on a
yeah,
tangent,
we
a
are
massive
we are on a
tangent.
massive tangent.
Yeah. The point though is that looking at why you want to go low, I do think that's important because it
Mm,
unlocks a secret about your mindset and the impact that your mindset is having on your round of golf.
yeah, yeah,
And if you can switch that thought process, that in itself is very powerful because it's going to
mm,
remove the fight or flight responses internally when you're under pressure in the closing holes. And when you're starting to defend that which you do not actually possess, which is
yeah,
a good round because you haven't
yeah.
finished it yet.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And look, we spoke a little bit or a lot a couple of episodes ago about Scotty Scheffler's mindset.
Yeah.
And he's in it for, he is so competitive in the moment. He wants to grind you into the dust in the moment, but he loves getting out there and to practice. He loves the day-to-day grind of being on the practice fairway, on improving, trying to get that little bit more out of himself so he can go out there and play the best that he can, but he's also there in the moment. And every shot, he's there in the moment, and the outcome takes care of itself. That's always been his mindset, and that to me is maybe not the ultimate in the growth mindset, but it's pretty close.
I think so. But I think as well, he's stumbled on a bit of this. And I feel like, obviously he's got some good people in his corner that are telling him the right things and he's learning from very wise people as well. But I still think he's stumbled on a bit of this Zen approach to the game that he
Mm.
talked about in that particular interview. And the reason I think that is because I don't think he actually managed to explain it as well as he
Yeah,
probably could have.
yeah,
And that's
I
what's,
don't think he did either. For
yeah,
him to say that it, well, he didn't say it doesn't mean anything to me because that's not true. Because he said it does mean an enormous amount to him. But what
but it's
he
not
effectively
fulfilling.
said, it's not fulfilling, and it doesn't satisfy the deepest levels of his
Yeah.
being.
Yeah.
Right. And I understand that. And his focus there is on his family and being a great dad and a great husband and being part of his community. And that's amazing. And I completely respect him for that, having that perspective. But you're right. I don't think he explained it as well as what he potentially could have, which sort of says to me that maybe he doesn't actually understand it, his own mental
That's what I
viewpoint
think.
as
That's
well
what I think.
as what he could. And you talk about Raymond Pryor and the Golf Beneath the Surface podcast and the book. He explains it in a way that I've never heard before,
Mm.
and in a way that just you listen to it and you go, "Wow, that just makes so much sense."
Yeah, one of the other really, really interesting things um, that came up with listening to Raymond Pryor and reading his book, and even in Carol Dweck's book as well, was that the people who live in the space of the fixed mindset where outcomes are tied to identity, which is a particular type of fixed mindset as well, it's quite
Yep.
common. But those people are more likely to lie about, fabricate, or
Mm,
exaggerate their performances
Mm.
and the reasons and excuses for why things went badly when they went badly.
Yeah.
So they are the person that's more likely to tell you that they shot a slightly better score than what they did, tell you that their
Mm.
handicap is slightly lower than what it is,
Mm.
come up with external excuses for why the round went as it did if it went badly, be that playing partners or course conditions or weather or all the rest of it. Whereas the growth mindset will always just call it as it is, honestly, without excuses, and accepting that it doesn't define that you're less of a person because you had a bad round.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought that was really interesting because we've all met that guy that just,
Mm.
kind of puts a bit of mayonnaise on the story.
Yeah.
Um, and that's just an indicator actually of a fixed mindset. That's fascinating to me.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And it's I was fortunate that I had a good friend of the show, David McClelland, as a mentor growing up back in the day down at Mollymook. And
Yeah.
I'd won three club championships in a row down in Mollymook, sort of late 80s, early 90s. And when the fourth year, I actually didn't play in the club championships and defended. I went to Sydney to start playing in the New South Wales Barden events and just to jump into a bigger talent pool. And I was shot to pieces with a couple of a lot of the membership base at Mollymook going, why aren't you playing the club championships? You're the defending champion, blah, blah,
Supposed
blah.
to support the
And
club by playing in our
yeah,
local comps. Yeah.
and David said to me, "You've made a really great decision because you've gone from being a big fish in a small pond
Mm.
and you have jumped into being a little fish in a much larger pond. But your growth is going to be exponential from here rather than staying back and playing in the club championships." And that's what I grew up with, which was a phenomenal resource to have.
It's another really good point because yet another indicator of the fixed mindset approach is to continually compete within your comfort zone where you know you can do well,
Correct.
or to compete well and truly outside your ability level where there was no chance you were going to succeed anyway. So you've got all these
Mm.
inbuilt excuses because it was always
Yep.
going to be too difficult. So it doesn't diminish you. And it's very rare to see that fixed mindset person in that, development stretch space where it won't be easy. You may well fail, but that's also where you'll grow.
Mm. Yeah.
So that's another
Yeah.
really good example. Yeah.
Yeah, but as a result of that, and as a result of David encouraging me and me being able to follow that path, within a year or two, I'd beaten a couple of pretty good amateurs, New South Wales top amateur golfers. I'd been selected in the New South Wales Colts team representing New South Wales. So, that to me just, exemplifies that growth mindset that you need to have if you want to keep pushing through those barriers and moving up to the next level. But you also need to not be scared to fail, or so-called fail. It's not really failing. I don't see it as failing, but you
But it is when your self identity is tied to the outcome.
correct.
Yeah. Okay. So that's mindset 23 minutes in. Um,
Excellent.
but it's really important. So that I think the checklist on that is have a look at the way you're approaching it. If you want to go low, you want to be fit, you want to be growth mindset, not fixed mindset. What that means is ask yourself why you want to go low. Is it a stepping stone in a longer learning and development process? And therefore, it actually doesn't matter as much as you think it does. Or do you want to go low because you want to be the guy that broke 80, or you want to be the guy that broke par, or you want to be the guy that shot whatever the number was? And then also ask yourself, when it doesn't work out, do you make excuses?
Mhm.
Do you blame other people? Do you look externally? Or do you accept the result and learn from the experience?
Yep.
There's some really good checklists I think to take away from that discussion.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yep. Awesome. Wow.
Hope
Top
that's a good
tip number
start.
one.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go from there, Andy Walker?
Well, look, I think from there, if once we get into the round and say we're through 13, 14, 15 holes, we're
Mm.
shooting a good score. We know that there is the potential there to have a great outcome in the back of our mind. what are we focused on? What are the techniques that we want to be using to stay in the growth mindset, to stay in the present moment, to be able to maintain the round, to maintain that level of play that we've managed to play over the last 13, 14 holes.
Well, I think the answer is obvious, Andy Walker. I mean, if you've spent 13 or 14 or 15 holes focusing on the shot by shot process, and you've got yourself into a good position, then I think at that point, obviously, you should switch to worrying about the outcome and start to think about what the score might be at the end of the 18 holes. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, yeah, protecting the score. Yeah, no, no,
No?
and no, no, and we very early in our pilgrimage, we had a conversation. We had a guest on, Neil Smith,
Mm.
who
He was awesome.
yeah, mental golf coach to PGA Tour players. Was actually a really good player. Australian guy, came from down on the south coast, Bega, I think it was. Played on the Australian tour for a little while. Played in the US for a little while, and he's now a mental coach. And I think it was episode 12. I looked back and saw episode 12. And what he talks about is that if you're staying present and being in a process focused mindset for 15 or 16 holes and it's working for you, why would then you want to change your whole mindset and become an outcome or results focused when you're going down the stretch? I mean, is that going to work?
Well, obviously not. It's crazy. But we do it.
We do. We do.
And I think that's the question is how can you avoid it? How do
Yeah.
you stop yourself getting drawn into all of the scenarios of what might happen? You know, like imagining yourself walking into the clubhouse after the round, you know,
Fist pumping.
winning the competition and getting the chance to have a chat on the microphone and thank your
Mm,
playing partners and, you know, getting the $100 voucher to the pro shop at the end of the round and, you know, all of those delusions of grandeur. I mean, enormous, enormous
mm,
glory in a
yeah.
weekly club comp as well, let's be honest. But we all do it. You know,
Mm,
we're all guilty of it. And it's very hard to avoid.
yep. Yep, yep, I agree. I agree. So certainly for me, I think the number one thing that you need to learn in order to go low is to be able to sit with that discomfort, that uncomfortable feeling, those nerves, and still be able to stay in the present moment, be able to not time travel, and be able to focus on your process and be able to execute based on your game plan. So, and this has sort of come from, again, from Raymond Pryor and Golf Beneath the Surface is, you hear the expression, especially on TV, that you need to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Mm.
Well, what they talk about, that there's no such thing, there's no comfort in being uncomfortable. And the guys that do the best are the ones that learn to get uncomfortable the quickest and stay there the longest. So when you're uncomfortable, that's when you're growing. That's when you're outside of your not current skill set, but you're in that growth phase and you're learning. And in order to sit there and be uncomfortable, that's the key to being able to stay in that growth mindset and be able to perform at a greater level.
So just to put a lens on this, right? Because what you're saying is right, but I can imagine listening to it, you go, still don't quite know what that means and how that translates.
Mm,
So try this on, see what you think. So the discomfort element, um, a lot of it stems from lack of certainty
yeah.
over the outcome.
Mm,
Okay,
correct.
and this is really what creates nerves, and in extreme cases, anxiety. But let's say nerves, because predominantly that's where you're at. Anxiety is where you're starting to have physiological responses, but nerves, it's around there is an activity that you care about the outcome, and this is the situation we're in. We care about the score we're going to post at the end of it, but you have a degree of uncertainty about the outcome, and that's the discomfort. It's that
Yeah.
feeling of uncertainty, and what you're saying is getting like being okay with sitting with that uncertainty for longer, because that allows you then to focus on the process of what you're doing, not worrying about solving the uncertainty. Because
Yeah.
what happens when your brain's naturally trying to solve that uncertainty piece and create certainty, that's when you start doing things like rushing, and making poor decisions, and reacting to the outcome thinking, because your brain's trying to make the outcome certain for you, which is the fight or flight reflex. So rather than allowing that to happen, is actually sitting in that discomfort of going, I care about the outcome's uncertain, so I need to just not deal with that for a little while, focus on the process.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
another way.
and when I talk about being uncomfortable or sitting in discomfort, you can call it many things. I mean, you can call it nerves, you can call it uncertainty, and when you're on the golf course on the 14th, 15th hole, the your final round is uncertain because it's in the future. The only thing that you can control is right now where you are. Anxiety comes from that time travel of going, oh, what if?
Mm,
What if I hit it in the water? What if I three putt? What if I hit it in the bunker? Or what if I hit it in the trees or out of bounds?
mm.
So that's where anxiety comes from. So it's not time traveling and not allowing yourself to become anxious, because sometimes that's where your mind goes, but it's whether you're using breathing techniques, some breath work or other techniques to be able to bring yourself back into the present moment so that you can stay in uncertainty, stay in those nerves, stay in the discomfort, and still be able to play freely and execute in a way that's going to be able to allow you to play your best golf.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't tell me over the weekend that Tommy Fleetwood was not feeling all of those feels when he was,
Oh,
sharing the lead into the
oh,
final round of the Tour
absolutely.
Championship after having had three previous leads and not a result, and all of the conversations that have gone on around that. And just as an aside, I think this is time for a tangent. I couldn't be happier for a bloke than to see Tommy Fleetwood win that
Absolutely.
tournament. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. I was
that,
over the moon to see
yeah,
him win the Tour Championship. I think that's one of the best things I've seen all year.
yeah. And he's obviously sat in a hell of a lot of discomfort
Yeah.
for that entire round of golf,
Yeah.
but learn the lessons over the previous ones. Where, in fairness, at times I think he's lost golf tournaments because just someone else has beaten him. Like
Yeah.
when Justin Rose came over the top with six birdies out of eight holes to close it out, and
Yeah.
and beat him. Fair play. And I think that's also another thing. In these rounds, in the quest to go low, you can do everything right.
Mm.
You can have the right mindset. You can stay focused. You can do all of those things as well as you possibly can. It still might not work out for you.
Yeah.
There's no
It
guarantees.
it doesn't guarantee the outcome at all.
No guarantees.
Yeah. But I
But
have to
doing
also
it doing
say,
it doing it wrong will guarantee an outcome. That's the other way
yeah.
around. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. But what I have to say, what a first tournament to win.
I know.
Like
So good.
if you're gonna like,
So good.
go through the challenges that Tommy Fleetwood's gone through,
Yeah,
and then at the end of it to win the Tour Championship,
yeah.
like you've got to sit back and go, well,
So good.
like that's just an awesome story.
Yeah. I wonder if he'll get an episode on Netflix's Full Swing.
Has to, has to.
Do you think he might get a little bit of coverage? It's
Yeah, yeah,
possible.
yeah, yeah,
No, no, that was phenomenal. But I think it's a good it's a good real world example of what you're talking about. That you do have to accept it. You do have to avoid that time traveling. Sit in the discomfort of the uncertainty of what might happen, because you can't do anything
mm,
about that. That's the one thing you
yeah.
can't control.
Yeah, and that's the thing that you need to accept. In order to go low, in order to play well, you are going to feel nerves. You
Yeah,
are going to have discomfort. You are going to have uncertainty around what that outcome's going to be, and potentially feel a little bit of anxiety. So that you need to expect that, and you need to accept that that is coming. and you need to deal with it. So the question is how do you deal with it? And yeah, that can be a number of different techniques around how you deal with it.
Can you kid yourself that you don't care, Andy Walker?
No, I don't think that's part of it. I think caring is part of having a growth mindset and part of why you're out there trying to shoot the best score that you can.
Mm,
And the whole reason why we're talking about this and why I'm sure the Pilgrims are interested in this conversation is because they do care, and our brain knows, like our brain knows when we are not telling the truth. And
absolutely.
to try and on the 16th hole coming down the stretch to go, oh no, I don't really care about the result. The brain is going to go, yeah, that's a load of
Yeah, BS. But
hogwash.
that's why I asked the question, because some people will look at the topic of acceptance, where we're saying it's important to pre-accept outcomes, or accept that outcomes may not go as you want them to, may go better than you want them to as well. So pre-accept outcomes. People do hear that and go, oh, but that just means not caring.
Yeah, no,
It's not. It's different.
it's different. It's very, very different. Being accepting of an outcome doesn't mean you don't care about around the outcome. What it means is you're prepared to put yourself in a position to have a great outcome, but you're also prepared to accept that putting yourself in the position means that you're not going to have a great outcome and you're perhaps going to feel not the best
Mm.
through having a poor outcome. But that's part of competing. That's part of pushing yourself. That's part of learning and growing.
I've got to ask the question on this: Are there shortcuts?
Not in the longer term.
Mm.
So I would say there's no shortcuts to being able to have a long-term upwards trajectory growth in any endeavor, regardless on what that is. I mean, the courts and jails are filled with people who wanted to take shortcuts in life.
Wow. Wow. The reason I asked that question is because where all this started, in the comment, it was a question on the comment that was asked, which was around, have you or I dabbled in playing off the front tees in an attempt to go low, essentially on an easier course, to then get used to the feeling of having a lower score than you normally would otherwise, so that when you're then back in that situation in normal rounds, you don't feel so fish out of water when you're going low. Now, I think we probably agree on this one. I think that strategy, there's a couple of things with it. One, it sort of feels a bit like the attempt to take a shortcut and not go through the processes of getting used to feeling uncomfortable in rounds when you're playing well,
Mm.
and viewing them as learning experiences and having outcomes that might go well, might not. Trying to fast track it by going to the front tees. I think the risk in it is, it definitely does not always work. It's by no means a guarantee of shooting a low number, because you still got to get the ball in the hole. But two, even if you do, in the back of your mind, you've got an asterisk on that round.
Mm. Yep.
And when you're back in the situation where you are, say 2 under with a couple to play, you're not going to go, oh no, it's cool because last week I shot 2 under.
Mm.
Your brain's going to say, yeah, cool. Last week I shot 2 under off the front,
Yep.
and this one really counts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Yep.
just
Yep.
don't think you can shortcut the process of getting through the hard work of doing, the mental hard yards of dealing with feeling uncomfortable when a good round's
Mm.
on the horizon.
Yeah. And I understand the concept behind it.
Mm.
As you said, I don't necessarily agree with it. What I do like the concept of, though, is when you're going out to have a practice round, say you go out and play 9 holes, play 3 holes off the front, 3 holes off the middle tees, and 3 holes off the back tees, and swap them around. Because if you're at your home club and you're just playing the same holes every time and you're playing from the same tees to the same positions to the same
Yeah.
areas of the
Yeah.
green, right? You get into a routine where you don't, it's just same. You're not learning anything. You're not growing.
Mm.
To change it up and change the conditions in which you play, then I see benefit in that. But that doesn't mean you're playing everything off the front. You're
Yeah.
switching up where you're playing from, so you're playing a slightly different hole.
What you're talking about doing, though, I think, is more around randomized practice techniques so that you're playing
Yes,
different shots than you normally would, not so
correct.
much about trying to shoot a score.
Yeah.
Um, I do want to put a caveat though on what I've said beforehand because I think some people are going to listen to that and go, "You don't always need to play off the back tees, and the only scores that count aren't always off the back tees." I
Oh
agree with
no,
that.
no, yeah,
Play
100%. You,
play
you
the
don't.
tee boxes, play the tee boxes appropriate for your skill set and the distances you hit, and do all those things.
Mm,
Not
mm.
everyone needs to play off the blue tees, but where you are, and this, and I guess this is where um, course ratings, slope indexes, and these types of things actually become really important because whatever you shoot off that front tee box is going to get adjusted, from a handicapping perspective through course ratings and
Yeah.
slope indexes. So that takes care of itself. So I'm not suggesting you always have to play off the back. What I am saying though is playing off the front for the purposes of shooting a number
Mm,
might actually be counterproductive. It could work,
mm.
but I just don't know that even if you do shoot that really low number, if that in the back of your mind, in your heart of hearts, in the truth of battle, is going to actually
Yeah.
do the job to get you through that mental hurdle or not.
Yeah.
Maybe it will,
And
maybe
look,
it won't.
I don't mind if you're, playing off the front tees and we talked about the randomizing practice to just play a different version of the golf course, just
Mm.
to throw in something a bit different. I don't mind that concept, but to use it specifically to try and shoot a low number, I'm not convinced that that's going to work.
Yeah. But if you want to try it out, give it a go by all means. I just don't know that it's the silver bullet. Like
Mm.
if it was that simple, people would do it all the time.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah. What's about? So I do want to come back to when you say, all right, you're in the last few holes. This is where the rubber hits the tarmac. Things are getting real. The instinct is to time travel and think of outcomes, but we need to pull ourselves back. So I think we need some concrete strategies to do it. I'm thinking breathing exercises, Andy Walker.
Yeah, breath work for me has been a bit of a revelation. Now, we've talked historically about meditation and
Yeah.
mindfulness and the
Hypnosis.
mental, those techniques, and we've always almost sniggered at the thought of
I'd say more than almost.
it. However, over the last maybe not 12 months, 6 to 8 months. I've found it's been something that's been really beneficial to a point where I have now implemented mindfulness, breath work, hypnotherapy into a fairly regular routine to a point where now I've haven't been getting up at 5:45 doing a strength and conditioning session, and then after the strength and conditioning session, I've been doing a breath work session for 10 minutes. And that's just been part of my strength and conditioning exercise morning routine. And
Mm,
I found that to be really helpful with focus. I've found it really helpful just to be able to regulate myself and how I feel throughout the day.
mm.
So unfortunately, I haven't played a lot of golf over the last 6 months. However,
Really?
I
No, none of us had noticed.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's not far away. I'm hoping it's not far away, but my plan is to start bringing that because I found it so useful as part of my day-to-day routine. Bringing that into my golf, I think, is going to be really beneficial.
I think it is. I mean, like, you're right. I think it'd be funny to go back and actually cut a couple of snippets out some of the early episodes of when we were talking about some of this stuff early on, probably even as early as episode 2 or 3. Um,
Mm.
but I've got to
I, I,
say,
I think self-indulgent was one of the terms that we used for it, wasn't it?
yeah, 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 it was. And I think that's probably more around the meditation space, around
Yeah.
carving out time to go and sit in a quiet room and go, which I think might have been your description of it.
Yeah.
But honestly, I've during the course of this pilgrimage learned so much about what we're talking about here around the need to be able to focus on the task at hand when playing the shot. It sounds so obvious, but it's actually there's a bit more to it than just saying focus on what you're doing at the moment, because
Mm.
you do have to develop the ability to calm the mind,
Yep.
because the subconscious is going to poke its nose up at the most inopportune time, which is
Mm.
usually halfway through your backswing.
Yep.
If you're not actually really clear and committed to what you're doing and have the ability to have moved on from those feelings of outcome and identity, which can work
Mm.
in both ways. Like, it's one of the times when breath work was I found super useful was it is in moments when I'm getting a bit excited when things are going well, maybe not even at the end of a round, but even early on in a round, and get a bit carried away with, you know, feeling like I'm Superman. And those breathing exercises, just a box breathing exercise, just brings you straight back to the present and gets, and I love that saying of get your head where your feet are,
Mm.
which is being
Yep.
on time concept that Raymond Pryor talks about. But just the ability to do that, and breath work
Mm.
is so useful for that, because you experience the feeling of breathing, and that's what actually the sensory aspect of that is what can bring you mentally back to where you need to be, rather than
Yep.
drifting off
Yep.
into the future.
And you don't actually have to have a breathing technique as such. With certainly mindfulness breath work, it's just breathing normally as you normally would, but just bringing your focus back onto your body, just subconsciously breathing and what that feels like, whether you're breathing through your nose, feeling that sensation of, oxygen coming up through your nasal cavity. So it's just bringing your focus back to your breathing so that you are, as you said, your head is where your feet's at.
Yeah. I mean, I like doing the, in for four, hold for four, out for four, hold for
Yeah.
four,
Yeah. Your box breathing. Yeah.
just because it's a thing. Like, it's a
Mm.
process in itself. And
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes that short circuits the thought process of getting
Mm.
carried away and,
Yeah.
thinking about other things. It's a
Yes.
personal thing, right? Like that. I'm not saying that that's what everyone has to do. It's
No, no,
personal.
but I have something slightly different in that I focus on my breath coming in, and then as I breathe out, I focus on whether it's usually a color, it's usually green, that going through the inside of my body and starting at the top of my head and going down through my body, so that that green color, that calmness going down through my body. So I find that to be a very useful technique to be able to calm the
Interesting.
heart rate, and the mind. So and that's used in hypnotherapy. So I've learned that through hypno.
That is quite out there, Andy Walker. Well done.
Thank you.
I think we need to unpack color green at some point, but you know, that's
Well,
a
it's a neutral color, isn't it? It's not
is
red.
it? It's not. No, that's a bit angry. Yeah, green.
Yeah,
Green's
yeah.
positive. Green's
Green's a
positive.
placid,
Depends
calm
what
color.
shade of green, I suppose. I think the Missing Links Golf Show green that you've got going in the background is quite a nice green.
It is.
Mm.
I, I,
Um,
I prefer a lighter green,
okay, that's good.
a grass green, like a
Okay,
kikuyu.
Kikuyu green. Yeah. Okay. I have heard also. Sorry, I'm moving on from that. I've heard also people, instead of using breathing techniques, do something like having a rubber band around the wrist that they flick and snap back onto the wrist as a
Mm.
physical way of bringing them back to the present.
Yeah, yeah, and that's potentially the start of a pre-shot routine. So that's another great way to be able to bring yourself back into the present moment is to have a consistent pre-shot routine. Because what I've always done, and similar to the elastic band, uh, as I'm getting to my ball and I put my clubs down next to my ball, I've got the Velcro on my glove, and as soon as that Velcro on my glove goes on, I'm back into the present moment and focused on the task at hand.
Mm, that's always a good one. Not so sure I like the addressing the ball and then marching on the spot for 38 seconds before pulling the trigger as a pre-shot routine, a la Patrick Cantlay.
No, 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 never done that.
Mm, can't imagine that helps.
No.
Um, but no, pre-shot routine is definitely a good one. Breathing exercise, pre-shot routines. I would add an element in the pre-shot routine, which I think is a bit that a lot of people miss. And I know I did for a long time, and not missing it now has made a massive difference. And that is as part of the pre-shot routine. So before you address the ball, so when you're standing behind the ball, looking at your target, is to get super clear about your target and then also your shot shape, depending on the shot you're playing, your landing spot. So really committing to an actual shot, having a plan for the shot, not just stepping
Mm,
up to the ball and autopiloting your way through the shot, which you can still do with a really nice pre-shot routine, unless you specifically are going through the process of agreeing with yourself as if you are your own caddy. What's the shot that you're playing on that particular shot
mm. Yeah,
and
yeah.
committing to it?
And that coming back to mental golf type, that's a very extrovert characteristic because I have the opposite in being an introvert. While I've got a shot I want to play and a target and a very specific target, whether it be on the green or down the fairway or a tree in the distance, once I make my mind up what sort of shot I want to hit, I bring myself back into my
The
own little
move you want to make.
space, more so a feeling. I've moved away from a swing technique more to a swing feel
Mm,
and how I want the swing to feel within myself. So I'm not focused on, I know a lot of people, they're focused on a shot shape and they just let their body naturally
mm,
adapt to the shot shape that they want to play. I know Tiger does that a lot. He talks about, yeah, I just focus in my mind that I want to hit a draw and then I just let my body make a draw swing. Well, I find it more beneficial to have a swing feel. Okay, and in my mind, and even through my swing, I'm focused on what's the feel I want to be able to make this shot go where I want it to and have the shot shape that I want it to have.
okay. Different flavors of the same type of thing, because the same would ring true that you'll need to at least identify what that feel is that you want to walk into the swing with, rather than just walking into the swing without having had that internal conversation and have that thought process.
Yeah, yeah, and look, I think that the way that it's explained in mental golf type is that an extrovert is 80% outside and towards the target and 20% internal, whereas an introvert is the exact opposite. Is it's 20% in front of you and to the target and 80% internal. And I definitely feel as though that's the case with me. 80% of what I do and what I focus on is internally driven rather than focusing on an external shot shape or landing point or area I want the ball to finish.
Interesting. I'm very much the other way around, which is
Yeah,
unsurprising given our
yeah,
mental golf types.
yeah.
Yeah. And look, you mentioned Neil Smith before as well. He did talk about that. I can't remember his exact phraseology, but he was talking, about someone being an out to in or an in
Yes,
to out.
yes,
Um,
yes.
and
Yeah,
so
he
it
he
was
he put it a different way,
same
a
thing.
slightly different terminology to what mental golf type.
Yeah.
puts it, but it was, yeah, they're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is very interesting. But I do think it's important. It's absolutely important because it re-centers you back in what you're doing right now, focusing on the particular shot that you're playing, which is the only shot that you can play.
Hmm.
And it then enables you to execute that rather than thinking about everything that might happen as a result beyond that. And that, like that's not just the outcome of the round, it's the outcome of the shot as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Focusing on the
yeah,
process that you need to hit the shot, not wherever the shot ends up. That's a byproduct. You
yeah,
don't
yeah,
have as much control over that as you think.
yeah, yeah. So another point that I've got down, and one thing that we've talked about previously is, and this is Tiger's philosophy, is playing aggressively to conservative targets.
Oh, absolutely.
And that to me, I've learned when I first heard that perspective to play from, that changed how I approach the game. And
Yep.
I feel as though I've become a much better golfer as a result of taking that on board and playing in that manner. Because, if I can play towards conservative targets, and that's, playing to the fat part of the green or to, the wide part of the fairway, I'm going to be less anxious about the potential outcome of the shot. So it will be easier for me to stay in the present moment and be able to make an aggressive, confident swing,
Mm.
which will then also help if I'm staying in the moment and making a confident, aggressive swing. That will assist with driving the outcome that I'm after.
There's a lot in what you've just said.
Mm,
Right. You're spot on, but there's a lot in that. And one of the things that I do want to probably highlight is that concept of conservative targets.
mm,
So the strokes gained data will quite clearly tell us that most amateur golfers are too conservative with their decisions off the tee, i.e., taking shorter clubs when driver is the option. Um, However, are far too aggressive when playing approach shots into the green,
yeah.
i.e., aiming at pins,
Mm,
short siding themselves.
mm,
I think the thing on this, and this is something that I've really been working on, and it absolutely works, is understanding what your dispersion pattern looks like
yeah.
with the various clubs in your bag. So, like understanding what's your average dispersion with your driver. Is it 20 meters left to right? Is it 70 meters left to right? It's probably more like 70 meters left to right, to be perfectly honest. And then going, all right, well, within that cone, when I'm standing on the tee box and there's trouble up the right, where am I going to aim the center of that cone to give myself the highest probability that the majority of shots I'm going to play within that average dispersion pattern are all going to be in play and are not going to cost me penalty shots?
Yeah.
And that might mean that I'm aiming at the left rough.
Mm, mm. Which is a conservative target, right?
Correct. Correct.
Mm.
But just sort of trying to define how you come up with conservative targets
Yeah, so you're not
because
taking a four iron off the tee and
that's right.
trying to hit it down the middle of the fairway, but you're also not, so say it's a dog leg right, and you've got, water all down the right hand side, going around the whole sort of dog legging around the water. You're not trying to take the water on and hit a driver down the right hand side of the fairway if you know your shot dispersion is generally speaking a fade or a slice.
That's right. That's right. So it's really doing that homework. And you know what? You can do a lot of that before the round. You don't have to
Mm,
do it during the round. You actually set yourself up for success by pre-planning the round. It's a very good idea to do that because that means also that you're going in with a game plan that you've decided on before you got emotional, before
mm.
things started to get carried away. Then it's a discipline matter to stick to it. But yeah, the being more conservative at the flag, that's a really good one. That means a couple of things is generally forget the pin, right? Like just aim at the center of the green.
Yep.
Your
Unless
dispersion,
unless the pin is in the center of the green.
yeah, well then aim at the pin, yeah. because your dispersion pattern with any of your irons is probably going to cover the entire green anyway,
Mm, mm,
realistically.
yeah,
So aim at the center of the green, give yourself
yeah.
the best possible chance of hitting the
Mm.
green.
Yeah,
Um,
I did hear a story, and it's an anecdotal story, and I don't know if it's true or not. But apparently there was a not a test, but a whole heap of college students went out in the US and they took the flags out of every single hole, and all they did was just hit it to the green. There was no pin. They just were just hitting it to the green, and they actually the majority of them scored better
mm,
without the flag in, without there being a flag, than what they did when they had a pin and they had a pin to aim at.
mm. I have heard this same story.
Yeah,
So
there are different versions of the story,
yeah,
which
yeah.
sort of leads me to think: is it anecdotal or is it
It could be an
just
old wives' tale or an urban myth. I
yeah,
don't know. It
yeah,
might well be true. I've also heard another version of it where the college coach set a task to his team in training that when they were hitting approaches, if they left it short of the green or they missed the green short side, they got a one shot penalty.
oh, okay, yep,
And so they all clubbed up and aimed to the fat part of the green, and same
mm,
result, shot
yep,
better scores than they ordinarily
mm,
would.
mm, yep,
Um, which is kind of two of the key points of exactly what we're talking about in this
yeah,
with your approaches is most of your misses are short. Now, I would caveat that by saying it's not always to do with club selection. It's also quite
mm,
often to do with strike quality.
yep,
Um,
yep,
but at the same time, it is quite often to do with club selection of thinking that you hit the
mm,
ball a little bit further than you do. So knowing your distances is important, but definitely short sighting yourself because
mm,
that's far worse than missing on the far away side of the green from the pin.
mm, mm. And that's John Sherman, a previous
100%.
guest of the show. That's
100%.
his perspective, right? He says that most golfer or the average golfer should take the distance and take a club to get them to the back of the green because a lot of the time they're going to miss hit and not actually reach the back of the green. Yeah, occasionally it's going to come out of the middle of the club and they're going to fly it over the back.
Yeah, it doesn't
But
happen
what
that often.
they're yeah, but what they're doing, they're taking the appropriate club for the average shot quality
Mm,
that they're going to hit, which will then end up being the majority of the time on the green.
mm. Now, in all honesty, if you're standing out in the fairway with an approach shot and you're doing a couple of breathing exercises to center yourself, you're really making a sensible decision about your target and the distance that you need to hit the ball. You're going through your pre-shot routine by focusing on the shot you want to play, the shape you want to play it with, or the move feel, depending if you're internal or external.
Mm.
You're getting up there with focus on process. If you're doing those things, you don't have time to think about outcomes and what score you're going to be
No,
shooting at the end of the round.
no, no, you're not. You're not.
So
Your brain doesn't have the space or the capacity
not a chance.
to be able to think about that many things at once.
Yeah. Which conversely means that if you do catch yourself thinking about outcomes and results and things like that, well, you're not doing this recipe for success,
Mm, correct.
clearly.
Correct.
Because it is okay to think about it between shots when you're walking up the fairway. That's fine. You can daydream your life away at that point, just so long as you bring yourself back when you get to the ball.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
Don't allow
Although
that to get
I
to you.
think I think a better technique is to maybe have a chat to your playing partners about, you know, some news on the day or something that's different to golf, or maybe, talk about smelling the roses, watching, having a look at the birds or
I think
whatever.
that's a good one. Yeah, I think that's a good one.
Whatever it is that you enjoy doing, just to take your mind away from the actual game of golf, and then you can time travel as much as you want,
Yeah.
within certain boundaries. Just as long as you're approaching the ball, as you're approaching your next shot, you're consciously bringing yourself back into your own consciousness and into the present.
So I do want to touch on that because that's an interesting one. I think it's a double edged sword. Depends on your personality type a little bit too. I think I see conversations on the golf course kind of on three layers. There's conversations about today's game of golf. There's conversations about golf in general,
Mm,
still remains semi relevant to what you're doing, and then there's conversations that have got absolutely nothing to do with golf about
mm,
whatever else it might be.
yeah.
Um, which are good for distracting you in the times when you want to just break the concentration and recharge the batteries. However, I think you need to be super careful with those because they can drag your concentration right away to a point that it's impossible or very difficult to get it back where it needs to be when you get over the next shot. And I do see this on a regular basis, playing golf with good mates, having great conversations about whatever the topic might be. And then either me or one of them, whatever it might be, standing over the shot and not actually having snapped that back to what you're doing and going through that process again. So
Mm,
I think the risk of that happening increases as you move through those three levels of conversation away from today's game, golf in general, into general chit chat.
yeah. Yeah. I think there's a fair bit of self-awareness that has to be at the front of mind when you're having those conversations.
The trick,
And
though, the trick on this one, sorry to jump in, is that
mm,
sometimes your playing partners don't know that and will continue that
yeah,
deep into when you're kind of going, guys, now I'm flicking the switch.
yeah,
Shush.
yeah, yeah.
Because we can get a bit carried away. That's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
something to think
and
about.
that's a little bit out of your control. In fact, it's completely out of your control. However, there are techniques that you can use, and you could potentially make it okay. I'm within 50 meters of my ball, so I'm going to start parting ways with my playing partners, and if they follow you, then that's an
And
issue.
that's the issue right there is the issue. So
But
I think
yeah,
it's just something to always be aware of because
mm,
you do often hear about, yeah, have a chat about, last Saturday night or whatever, break the tension and I just share that because it's good and it makes sense, but there's risk as well if you can't pull it back at the right time because it can get away
yeah,
from you.
yeah. I don't think you can have a full D&M with
Senior
a
partner.
playing partner. Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm
Yeah.
talking about superficial conversations that talking about the footy game on the weekend, and not going into the analysis of why a particular team or a particular player played a certain way.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm more talking about, just having those superficial conversations that just break, gives your mind a break from, that focus and full on, mental grind that sometimes golf can be.
Yeah. 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 Agree with all that.
Mm, mm. So, look, the last thing that I have on my list, and I think it's something that's also really, really important to understand, is that sometimes going low and getting it right at the end of the round, it just takes time. It
Mm.
just takes reps. It takes putting yourself in that position time and time again. It's unlikely you're gonna get it first go. You're probably gonna stuff it up first go. That's golf. It's a tough game to get right. Well, you can't get it right all the time, but it's a tough game to get it right even the majority of time. But putting yourself in that position and not being scared to put yourself in that position, not being scared to have what would be considered a bad outcome, or a better way of putting it, a learning outcome, something you can learn from.
Mm.
So, so yeah, and I look back to my example last year, and I felt as though sort of in the early part of last year, I was doing a lot of things right. I was practicing a fair bit. I felt as though my swing was good. I felt like I was improving, but the scores just weren't coming. There are a number of times, a number of rounds where, I was around par with 3 or 4 holes to play, and I finished, 3 over in the last four or worse. But then all of a sudden it just clicked, and there was one round where I had I think it was 1 under in the last 4 holes, and then I had 3 under in the last 4 holes, and then all of a sudden I was off and I was away, and I had quite a good stretch of golf over a period of a couple of months. But it actually took a couple of months of me failing, and I say that in inverted commas,
Yep.
having a learning experience to be able to then take that and finish it in a way that, from an outcome perspective, I was happy with and really stoked with. But it did take a number of learning experiences and me having to go through that process of staying in the present moment and being not comfortable with being uncomfortable, sitting in the discomfort, in the nerves, and doing all the things that we've just talked about.
So much in that. And you're spot on. And I think it links us right back to where we started, that, you're going into those situations saying, basically looking at it going, there's a couple of ways you can look at it. Through 15 holes, you're shooting your best score. You've got to close it out over the last three. You can look at it either, I'm either going to succeed or fail. This really binary outcome going. I've had a great day and I'm a great golfer and I'm a great person, and I'll probably get voted in as prime minister next week as a result of all of this, or I will fail and I'm a failure and I'm a choker and I'm a disgrace and I deserve to be divorced and
Mm,
lose my job and all the rest of it. Obviously extreme examples, but like that's what it's setting up when you're really tying that identity piece to it. So there's that, and that unfortunately, that's kind of the default. That's the natural way as guys that we generally approach. It's going either
mm.
I am good or I'm a failure.
Yeah,
It's kind of
it's very binary. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of how it's set up. Absolutely, that's going to introduce tension, right? Like,
Mm,
there's no doubting that, and that's not going to be a good thing. Or you're looking at it going, all right, I've got a good round going through 15 holes, 3 holes to play. I'm either going to shoot a great score that I'm going to be stoked with, or I'm going to learn a lot about what this feels like over the last 3 holes.
mm.
That's going to put me in a better position next time. Like,
Yeah.
which one feels more comfortable and feels like it's going to release you and allow you to do well? It's obviously the second
Yeah,
one,
the
but
second one for
that's
sure.
not the natural way that we do things. So I think that that's absolutely what you're driving at with that. And the other part of it, like the other aspect, is what we also talked about, that there's no shortcuts. You got to do this.
Yeah.
You've got to put yourself there time and time again.
Yeah.
Um, and it might take 2 times, it might take 3 times, it might take 10 times before you can close it out. You will get there, because that is the way of things. Tommy Fleetwood showed that.
Yeah.
Like he get there, and it took him a lot of goes
Yeah.
to have a 54-hole lead to close one out. And
Yeah.
then he
And
did it.
and
And not only did he do it, he did it on like the biggest stage.
yeah. Yeah. And how do you think Tommy Fleetwood's feeling at the moment? Like how stoked would he be that
Yeah.
he has, come through the depths of despair? And I listened to I know it was the one that 4 or 5 weeks ago where he bogeyed, the last couple of holes to
Yeah.
lose. It wasn't Justin Rose. I forget who it was that won, but I remember listening to
Probably
his.
Scotty.
It wasn't Scotty. I'd have to go back and have a look to see which tournament it was, but I remember his interview afterwards, and he got up and he fronted the media. I remember us talking about the fact that he
Yeah.
he fronted the media, and he was gutted. He
Yeah.
he just wanted to go and hide.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's gone from there and that feeling to probably now feeling he's on top of the world and he's just won the
Yeah.
tour championship
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And a
and
lot of
and
that
and
set up.
15 million bucks better off.
Oh,
Thank
mate.
you very
I
much.
know. But a lot of that satisfaction, you know, that wouldn't be there without the hard times and
Hmm.
without the so-called failures, again in inverted commas.
Yeah,
That all adds to the story, and that all adds to the satisfaction when you stick it out and when you do finally achieve that. And that, like, sure, we're not playing for $15 million paychecks. That'd be nice.
Mm.
But the feelings are the same. You know, all
Yeah,
of those feelings are exactly the same for every person that's doing the
yeah,
best that they can on a weekly basis.
yeah.
You know, and he's been through it, and and there are no shortcuts. You know, like if you ask Tommy, there is not. And also, I think if you ask Tommy, would you have wanted it to have come more easily? Um, if you asked him that at the times when the heartbreaks were on, sure. But if you asked him that now, probably not, because
Mm.
all of those experiences are things that he's learned from that are going to make him the player that he will be in the future. And it would not, in the slightest, surprise me to see Tommy Fleetwood go on a tear next year and win a major or two.
Yeah, yeah, and that would, and I've said it now for a couple of years. I would love to see. He's probably apart from another Aussie winning. I'd love to see Adam Scott win another major, or Jason Day, or Minwoo Lee get up and win a major. However, putting the Aussies aside, if there's anyone, any other golfer on this planet that I would love to see win a major championship, it's Tommy Fleetwood. I think he's got the game to win a major, and now he's proven to himself that he can win on the big stage. I just would love to see that.
Mm, absolutely. Could not agree more, Andy
Hmm.
Walker. So, wow, that's been a big episode.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
lot of ramble in there, but there's some good stuff in there as well, I think.
Look, I think there's a lot of really good information and good techniques in there. I think that there's yeah, a little bit of meat on the
Mm.
bone. So I think I'll have to go back and listen to it again myself. It's not often I go back and listen to some of our podcast episodes and my ramblings. So this might
Quality
have to be one of
control.
them.
Quality control, Andy Walker, it is important. It's like when you're running a hotel, you got to stay in your own property every now and then just to know what
Mm.
the service standards are like.
Well,
Listen to your own podcast.
it's like the chef tasting his own food, isn't it?
It is. It is. The wait staff need to taste it too, so they know what to recommend. I would say this for you and for anyone else listening: when you listen to this episode, download it because that helps.
Yep. Do you think I should give us a rating and review?
Give us a rating and a
Yep.
review. Um,
Yep.
Hopefully, it's a good one. If you give us a bad rating, then I'll be upset.
Yes. Yes.
And
Definitely.
recommend it to a friend.
Mm.
Who's your mate out there that can't close out a round? This is the
Yep.
episode you need to send them.
Yep. Yeah. Subtly.
Yeah. You can't send it to me because I'm going to listen to it anyway.
Yep. Yep.
Very good. All right, Pilgrims. On that note, Andy Walker, what on earth is there left for everyone to do?
Look, and this is something. This is a technique that I've used for a very very long time.
Give me strength.
It's after I finish the round, I've thrown the clubs in the car, I've jumped in the car and turned the ignition on. There's only one thing I do.
What's that?
Rock out, Pilgrims.